Something interesting too is, all of the talk, and you mentioned obviously Marcus Smart talking to Jay King, all of the emphasis on him being this clear number one point guard for the team. That's how he slots in. He's replacing Kemba Walker. He is going to be in that role after getting the big payday, that big contract, and is a very good playmaker. I think that if there's one thing, people who are sort of the casual fans that don't watch often, don't pay attention, the people that just like to gripe about the number of threes he takes, or not letting the shot clock run down and taking bad shots, or heat checks, or whatever it may be, totally undervalue it, or borderline don't even pay attention to the fact this guy's a very, very good playmaker. And this is an opportunity, obviously, to see that. I'm very curious to see if or how Udoka sort of reins in his offensive approach when it comes to shooting, and has him fixate more on playmaking. But on the topic of Horford, that's another thing that was said, is that this offense is going to really run through Horford as a bigger playmaker. And look, that is something that was the case when he was here the first go around. Brad Stevens talked a lot about it back then. How do you think this offense is going to operate when, we're looking at those two guys, and obviously neither one of them are the two that you're leaning on for all the offense?
Yeah, to your points on Smart to start, I think he's going to really, really thrive in this role because he has a defined role. Yeah, he's always been one of the point guards under Brad Stevens, but he's kind of been that sixth man, quasi starter, do whatever the team needs. And I think a lot of that has led to some of the offensive antics that sometimes bother the casual fan, where he's in there with the second unit, so he wants to get his shots up and whatever. I think now that he has this more defined role that he has mentioned in the past is important to him, being a starter and having that role be clearly defined is important to him. I think naturally that's going to rein in some of his shooting and make him that playmaker, that facilitator on the floor. And I think that's really important for this team because he's a really good facilitator. Like you said, he led the team in assists last year. He's smart at finding the open guy. He makes good decisions out there when it comes to being a passer, when it comes to being that playmaker. But I think they have a lot of guys that they can run the offense through. You can operate with Smart as that primary ball handler. Having Horford at the top of the key, running the offense through him. They tried to do it a couple times late in the season with Rob Williams last year, and it actually worked on occasion. Rob Williams is a really good passer, but Al Horford is a natural playmaker as a big man. And they did it when he was here before under Stevens, and they'll certainly do it again this time. I just think that opens up a world of possibilities for the Celtics offensive dynamic because they didn't have a lot of ball movers last year outside of Smart. And of course, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they're not particularly ball movers. They're the end game, which is what they're supposed to be. But now that you add in a guy like Al Horford, who realistically, even at his age, is still a matchup nightmare for opposing teams, it really changes the dynamic for the Celtics offense because you need guys to move the ball to ultimately get open Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Al Horford can do that. So I think it really helps just to have the added ball movement because there was too many stagnant stretches with the offense last year where, like Ime Udoka said, you stop the first action from the Celtics and it just goes right to isolation. It's game over. That's
Yeah,
going to
you
be
said
much
it,
tougher to do.
enough of the one-on-ones. I mean,
Right.
we've been talking about that for years.
Yeah.
It's been infuriating to watch. It was whether it's been Tatum, whether it's been Brown, whether it was Kyrie Irving when he was here. It's just always been sort of a part of that offense, part of the NBA offense. It's not unique to the Celtics, obviously, and it's not good team basketball. It's not fun to watch. So it sort of fits back into, again, some of the early themes, things that the players are working on in practice, things that they've been talking about with all of you. uh, Pace, defense, the emphasis on these two things going into a new season, and stuff that Brad Stevens always talked about as well. So like, these aren't revolutionary topics by any stretch, but for whatever reason last year in particular, obviously, defense went to hell, and it's not even like they didn't have the defensive talent. They just, whether it was lack of continuity and chemistry and man games lost and COVID and all of the different factors that went into last year, and pace, same deal. It wasn't what you expected it to be really the last couple of years. What should we be looking for this season in those two areas?
Well, I think the pace is going to be up. Jaylen Brown talked about that. He said he wants to play fast. I mean, every NBA player wants to play fast in today's game just because it's the positionless style of play where you can really run. That wasn't an option for a lot of teams even 10 years ago, but now it is. So Jaylen Brown made a point to emphasize that. after the second practice the other day. And I think that's probably going to be something. I think the aggression on defense is certainly going to be up quite a bit because this team has the potential to be a top 5 defensive team in the league without question. They have a lot of versatility, but they have length and speed along the perimeter. So their ball pressure is going to be much better than it was last year. Like you said, last year across the board, whether it was that lack of continuity, COVID year, whatever, it was a wacky year. There was barely any ball pressure for various stretches. And that was a problem. This year, because of that defensive versatility, the length and speed on the perimeter is really going to cause headaches for teams. So I think that's going to be the main like eye-opening thing early on is that ball pressure is going to be really, really, pretty high compared to last year.
Tatum last year, Chris, of course, 26, almost 27 points per game, an all-star, should have been all NBA. He was snubbed there, lost out on a lot of cash in the process. One of the things is just music to my damn ears that he has been talking about here early on. And I've been like, look back on my Twitter, how many times I've been harping or advocating for this. Him talking about wanting to go downhill more, go to the free throw line more, get more opportunities. Last year, 5.3 trips to the line per game. And of course, that's singular free throws. It's not, he's getting there for 5 times and he's taken 10 per. He's taken 5.3 attempts per game last year and a very good free throw shooter, by the way. If we can just get him there 7, 8 times per game, it's very reasonable. It's very possible, makes him close to, if not at, a 30-point per game guy as well. I just think it's incredibly realistic. It's been the part of his game that has been, I don't want to say missing necessarily, but it has been inconsistent. It's come in those, handful of game stretches, and then it disappears for a little while. It brings the average down. What are the chances that this goes beyond just being talk and we see Jason Tatum getting to the line 7, 8 times per game this year?
I think there's a really good chance of it. I mean, you saw the pictures of him bulking up over the offseason. Again, that's classic offseason content, but he is bigger. And I think they made a point, him and Drew Hanlon, to work on that this offseason. I think a fan a couple weeks ago tweeted at Drew Hanlon and asked him, what was the point of emphasis this offseason with Tatum? And he said, getting downhill. And so that obviously turns into free throws. And that's going to be very necessary for him to take that next step in his game. And I think it's leading to that point. Like you said, the free throw numbers have been trending upward for him over the last couple of years, but he's still 23 years old. And up to this point in his career, he's that finesse scorer. He's not a rumble scorer. He's not a guy who can bully his way to the basket. Well, he can, but he hasn't to this point in his career. When he's at Chaminade and Duke coming up, as he developed as a basketball player, he was that finesse perimeter scorer. So it's second nature for him to fall back on that, right? Making the adjustment to be that downhill rumble scorer, draw the contact, draw the fouls, get to the line. That's not natural for him. So he's been making that adjustment. And I think it's trending in the right direction to have those free throws continue to add up. And I think because of his muscle gain, because of what he's been working on this summer with Drew Hanlon, I think it's extremely likely. And they're going to need it too, because this team is limited on offense outside of him and Jaylen Brown. So they're going to need Jason Tatum to get to the line. And I think it's pretty likely that it's going to be more so than in years past.